that the mass would be clinging to the center of a ball rather than the mass clinging down to the massive flat Earth?
I wouldn't have to differentiate whether gravity exists on a flat or spherical Earth. I would that would be a separate conversation. That would be entering the sphere being the most natural forming shape, whether it's in space or on Earth, just the most natural and the strongest. So it wouldn't matter.
I think he asked how you would differentiate between the Earth affecting the experiment, or if it's actually the balls who is attracting each other.
Oh, okay, that's fine.
That's right, Joe.
Well, yeah, like I'm just saying. Let's just say that you did a Cavendish, and you said, okay, I think that this absolutely proves that these balls are attracting due to the nature of their mass. Let's just say you came to that, okay, 100%. Well, what I'm saying is that in terms of how that relates to the rest of the universe, why would you make a conclusion that the Earth would be a globe with things sticking to the center of the sphere rather than the Earth being a flat plane, a massive flat plane in which things are attracting down, the mass of my fork or whatever that's attracting down to the massive Earth?
Well, I don't understand why you keep saying attracting to the center of the sphere. It's true that we can simplify a spherical shape as if all the mass was concentrated at the center of the sphere. That's the way it works out mathematically. But in reality, every particle is being attracted to every other particle in that sphere. That's the way it works.
But why go to the sphere? Like, I'm not questioning that you think the Earth is a sphere. That's totally, I understand that. But I'm just saying, like, just from Cavendish alone, if mass attracts mass, 100% guaranteed, proven down and through. Why then would one think? I'm not assuming what you might think. Why would someone say that, okay, that everything's clinging to a ball Earth rather than everything clinging down to the massive flat plane?
Oh, you combine other evidences. So if we literally knew nothing about the universe and Earth and science, if we literally knew nothing and we performed this experiment and determined mass attracts mass, I don't think that alone and just that would determine the shape of the Earth. But it's evidence for a spherical shape because a sphere is, I'd go as far as to say, the strongest shape, natural forming shape.
It's a natural consequence of having mass attracting mass. You would form spherical shapes.
Right.
It forms a shape of the lowest geopotential. That's what happens.
Yeah. I mean, in some ways, I don't suppose. I mean, the way that like water makes a ball or whatever. So yeah, I do. I mean, I guess I wouldn't make that philosophical leap myself, just to say that, just because it's a natural shape or whatever, that means that that's what the Earth is. But that does seem to exist, like in water droplets and stuff.
No, but the problem is, if what we do is we would observe other things, right, in nature and see if that's actually what's happening. Do things tend to cling to each other into spherical shapes? If it didn't, then there would be a conflict there between those two theories. But we do, in fact, observe all other objects in space to form into spherical shapes, so it does confirm it.
And it's not that hard to show mathematically that if we have all particles being attracted to all other particles, that the natural consequence of that is that those things would form spheres, given if they could move freely, right? So if something can move freely, it will naturally arrange itself into a sphere. Mathematically, that's a consequence of mass attracting mass.
And it's not a philosophical question, it's a matter of physics.
Yeah.
So, your electrostatic idea, that's always an attracting force, eh? But how do you come up with that? I mean, we never see mass repelling mass, so electrostatics would have like a two-way street, would it not?
Yeah, I would say so for sure. Yeah, I mean,
well, in a Cavendish, we don't see the balls repelling each other.
Yeah, one of the differentiating factors of gravity is it's unipolar. There is only one direction of attraction. Plus the fact we can manipulate the other forces we know of. We can shield them. We can shape them. You can't do that with gravity.
It would be a mind-blowing coincidence if every Cavendish experiment that was ever performed just happened to have the same electrostatic potential on all of the balls. That would be a super-duper coincidence, wouldn't it?
Well, if you're using a particular size device, with particular types of metal, I would expect it to have a similar kind of electrostatic potential. I mean, all matter has an electrostatic potential, whether it's, especially metal, even more so.
Yeah, all matter has a varying degree of electrostatic potential, and that electrostatic potential varies with the environment as well. The relative humidity has an effect on the electrostatic potential, carrying capabilities of an object as well. So we would expect these things to be visible in multiple Cavendish experiments, and yet the only thing we see is mass attracting mass according to Newton's law of gravity.
Right, and then you can also use paramagnetic material and diamagnetic material. You would expect opposite results. If mass doesn't attract mass, you would expect using a particular material to repel each other, and you would expect a particular material to attract each other. But what we see and measure with the Cavendish is all attraction.
Well, yeah, like I said, I may have played with one in school at one point, but not in any detail. So in terms of my own direct, I don't have direct experimentation.
It's very easy to set up.
Yeah.
But despite not having that experience, you're just going to draw an erroneous conclusion, are you?
You can set it up in your own house. Just attach a thin string like a fishing line to your ceiling.
I don't think it proves anything because you're not isolating a variable, an independent variable. So it's really just the observation of an effect, but it doesn't actually isolate the cause of what is happening in that device.
So we can go down that road, and it's very, very easy. There's no reason to get emotional. The independent variable is the mass itself, and the way you manipulate it is by introducing it or removing it, and you can do it a third way. You can introduce a different sized mass. You can do all types of manipulation with the masses.
My response to that, which I've gotten deep into this in the past with people, my response to that is that in order to have an independent variable, in my opinion, in order to have an independent variable that's valid, it has to be a part of that device, as it were, a part of that. Meaning, if you bring something else new into it, like a different size ball, you're dealing with a completely different experiment at that point. You're not actually manipulating a variable within.
No, you're not. That's nonsense.
You're right.
Yeah,
so
absolute nonsense, because the requirements for a variable to be independent literally means that it just has to be independent of the other variables. That's why they call it an independent variable. You trying to redefine what an independent variable is just garbage.
Well, it has to be within the device. If you're bringing in something new, it's not independent.
Can you give a citation or a source for this information that's not just your opinion? Or is it literally just your opinion?
It's just an experiment.
Well, sharing my opinion, I guess I could give you someone else's in a citation, but I'm just sharing my thoughts right now.
Right, and that's what I'm trying to get to. If it's just your opinion, then that's fine. Your opinion is wrong, but it is your opinion. But if you're getting this information from a reliable source, I would love to read it, because that would contradict so many things. But I would still be interested in reading it.
I'm just saying that the basic concept, in my opinion, there's other humans that do other things. I can't account for everything, what everyone's doing. And some people make citations of their opinions or their results or whatever it may be. But I'm just saying, in my opinion, when you're looking at something like a Cavendish device, I think that you have to have an independent variable within the confines of that experiment. If you bring something new into it, that to me is not valid as an independent variable. You're just changing the entire. You're changing.
Then you do not understand the whole concept of experimentation and independent variables. You clearly do not grasp this, because what you are saying is just contrary to common sense and logical thought.
Here's a easy question. If you were to perform an experiment dealing with the electrostatic potential of objects, would you not remove it to zero it out and then introduce it to see what changes occur? I would expect that you would do just that, and that makes sense, right?
You could, but what's that isolating?
You're experimenting with different types of materials to see what changes it has on a particular within a particular experiment.
Yeah, but if you bring something new in, you're not dealing with the same experiment. You're dealing with a whole different setup.
Because you're isolating a particular variable, namely the independent variable. So if you have a particular experiment, you can use diamagnetic material and paramagnetic material, and then you can see how they contrast to each other and what changes occur. Would that be valid?
I think it would be valid in basically acquiring a new set of effects, of an observation of effects. Like if you use, Kevlar.
Come on, give it up, man. It's just nonsense what you're proposing.
It's more like this. If you had, let's say, a certain vehicle, like a Ford, which is an American brand, if you had a Ford car and you wanted to test that Ford car, for its whatever you're trying to test it for, and you wanted to acquire some kind of independent variable within that. If you were to add shock absorbers from a Chevrolet into that Ford car, you're not dealing with the original Ford car. Now you're dealing with a modified version.
How about this? How about let's take that Ford car. Let's take that Ford car, right? And we're going to test the shocks. Wouldn't you then put it in a number of environments, over rocks, over concrete, through a grass field, things like that? Wouldn't that be valid to test the shock?
It could be, yeah. Yeah.
Right, but you're changing the independent variable and you're changing the location. But you just said it's okay.
That's different because you're changing. What you were talking about is changing the actual lead balls, which is actually part of the car, essentially. But the closer analogy is if you took Cavendish and you did it at 5,000 foot altitude, you did it at different latitudes. That would correlate because you're moving it in different environments. Like if you take the car into different, terrains or whatever.
Right, and you can do Cavendish at different altitudes. That's fine, so long as you maintain the masses. Or when you compare experiments, the only thing that you change is the environment or the altitude. That's fine. But just like the masses, you can use lead as the material the entire time. You can use spherical shapes the entire time, and the only thing that you're changing is the amount of mass. That's the one thing that you're changing every time.
Be like if you had the Ford car, that would be like if you were trying to figure out, it's how it functioned as a car or whatever, and then if you put on bigger shocks, if you put entirely bigger shocks on, well, now you're dealing with a whole different beast. You know what I mean? Like you're not going to get very accurate readings. For the potential of what that original one has, which is what I'm just using that correlation to say with Cavendish. But I mean, I hear you have a difference of viewpoint, and I do respect your viewpoint, but
I don't respect yours. Just to be clear, I don't respect yours because it's obviously wrong. And I think it's just your opinion, which is cool. You can have your opinions, of course. I'm not going to take that away, but I don't respect your opinion on this matter.
If you're talking about dependent and independent variables, why aren't you actually talking about variables rather than objects such as Ford cars? Surely you would then pick an actual variable that related to the object and talk about it in the sense of a dependent or independent variable. But talking about Ford cars as if that has something to do with dependent or independent variables is just nonsense.
Contrarianism requires him to do this.
What particular experiment do you think is full and complete, Gio? I kind of want to compare what you find to be good against what you find to be bad.
Not sure what you mean in terms of setting up an experiment that can acquire some valid information about the physical world.
That follows your opinion of the scientific method. That would qualify your standards?
Yeah. Well, I think that the whole scientific method concept has a lot of different, I mean, there's like there is an original scientific method of experimentation, but there's also a lot of other kind of components that word is used for. But so I to me, a lot of science is a cult, and even the way that the scientific method is pushed can even be a cult. I think it can still be, there can be accurate ways of acquiring knowledge from it, but I don't think it's the end all be all way of doing things.
Fantastic. So anyway, what experiment would meet your standards when it comes to the independent variable, dependent variable, all the control variables, all of these things? Because a Cavendish doesn't meet your standards. I understand that's your opinion. So what experiment does meet your standard?
Well, I guess it depends on what you're acquiring. If you're trying to figure out like what temperature water boils at, for example, then I would say you'd want to have a set heat source. You'd want to have a set environment, that you're going to be experimenting that, and you'd want to do different latitudes and longitudes. You'd want to move that device and then take a lot of measurements to see what temperature water boils at. And the independent dependent variable, in that case, the heat is an independent variable because you can turn it on and off. It's part of the device. You're not really adding it. It's already part of the setup.
Yes, you are. There's no difference between varying the heat and varying the mass. In an experiment that's designed to determine the effects of mass, the variable is the mass. And it's just nonsense and pig ignorant arrogance for you to say it's different to being able to vary a heat source in a boiling water experiment.
Right. So I wouldn't use those exact words, but he is mentioning what the truth is. So your heat source, you're going to have to turn it on, right? You're going to have to introduce a heat source. I think we can agree. We'll push on. Now, when you introduce a heat source, you can vary the flame size. You can vary the output temperature. You can vary the material used to burn to give you a particular temperature. You could do all of these things within the experiment, right?
Can, yeah.
Right. So now I'm going to use that same analogy. We're going to introduce a mass, and then we're also going to vary the size of this mass within the experiment. We'll keep the material the same and the shape the same, but we're going to vary the mass. So why is that invalid, but your heat source is valid?
The heat source is not a variable. You're not bringing that in. Like, you're starting with what temperature does water boil at. Therefore, unless you're going to make it cold, like if you have ice, if you're going more towards the heat size, then you'd be starting, your experiment would be, let's say, a Bunsen burner, a flask, water, etc. So that would be your setup. With what you're talking about with Cavendish, to bring in other weights means that you're bringing something in that alters the original experimental setup. Therefore, you're not actually acquiring an independent variable from that device. You're adding something else and just observing a different effect from those different.
No, it's the same effect, and it's part of the experiment. It's part of the experiment the same way that you introduced heat. You at one point in your experiment there was no heat at all, but you within the experiment have to introduce it. It's the same thing with the mass. It's part of the experiment, and the effect that it has only varies when it's different sizes. Just like your boiling water will reach or not reach boiling temperature due to the heat that you introduce and manipulate. And then you can also, within that experiment, see how long it takes for it to get to boil.
Yeah, I hear you. We're pretty deep in Cavendish right now, but well, I hear what you're saying, but the thing is that when there is a difference, because when you're using heat to boil water, you are you're modifying the actual heat and then observing what the water might boil at.
Perfect. In the Cavendish, we're modifying the size of the mass, and we're seeing what effect that it has on the torsion.
Yeah,
what about the language, it is the variable. It is the variable that controls the outcome of the experiment. And there's no way you can slice or dice it any other way. To attempt to do so is just intellectually dishonest.
It's set up way different.
The difference in my mind is that if you're changing the heat to boil water, you have a cause and effect, a direct cause and effect. If you're talking about the way that masses move on a whole torsion rod system, you're still not isolating other possible effects. So you're still not actually isolating anything. With the water thing, you actually are isolating that it was the heat that caused the boil.
You're not isolating everything, however, because what if we have within your water experiment, all variables are accounted for, and the only thing we change is pressure. Do you think that we can change pressure only and get it to boil? Do you think that we can change the pressure and introduce a low percentage of the heat that you had originally used and still get it to boil if we only change pressure? Sounds like you haven't isolated all the variables in your experiment.
Yeah, I was just talking about a simple experiment of water boiling at a particular altitude. But yeah, if you're going to change altitude, you're involving a whole other set of factors. Yeah.
Perfect. So I'm not going to do that. So I hope that you don't do that to the Cavendish, because we can get into how you can account for everything. We're just talking on a basic level, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess all I can let you know is that in all of my years of talking about and hearing different perspectives on Cavendish, my 100% conclusion is that it does not isolate anything. But I do think it's an interesting observation of an effect, and I certainly respect other people's usage of it in whatever way they deem fit.
We respect your lack of understanding of the scientific method.
I highly recommend you setting up a simple Cavendish where you are, and it really doesn't take much to do a simple one. I highly recommend doing that.
Disagree with that.
You can manipulate all kinds of things.
Cavendish is not a simple experiment. It's not easy to set up a Cavendish experiment. You have to be extremely careful about the way you set up the apparatus to get valid results. Cavendish is not a simple experiment to do.
I would disagree. Just for cause and effect, I think that it's simple. To do the measurements and get to the gravitational constant, I think that is the part that you're referring to. But just for cause and effect, I think it is easy.
Well, doing it, they get different results, and they usually take an average. Sometimes they don't get an attraction at all. Sometimes they get more of an attraction. There's a wide range. And they end up actually voting on the gravitational constant. I mean, that's how inconsistent.
Total. No, that's just an anecdote. You have no basis to say those things.
You act like the Cavendish is the end all be all.
It's a very fantastic experiment to show and measure this thing.
In an experiment,
I find it virtually useless to acquire any solid information, but it is an interesting observation of an effect, and I think the medium that it's in is likely the cause of the movement of it. Since, I mean, nothing is static. There's nothing that's static. I mean, all matter has movement to it. So of course that thing is going to have some movement.
And we understand, and thank you for displaying your lack of your demonstration of ignorance on this topic, but we wish you would stop making erroneous conclusions from your ignorance. I mean, basically, the Cavendish is to demonstrate mass attracting mass. In the experiment where the masses that are introduced to invoke the effect, if they are not present and the apparatus sits absolutely stationary, I would contend that you have eliminated every other possible consideration and effect in that instance, at that time, in that environment. You cannot rationally say that if the only thing you have done is introduce the test masses to the experiment, and that is the thing that causes the Cavendish to produce a result, you are just flying in the face of obvious common sense and logical conclusion.
I think most flat earthers forget that you have to bring it to an equilibrium, stationary, and not rotating. I think they forget about that part before masses are introduced.
Well, completely ignorant of the whole test methodology. They really do not understand the concepts of setting up baselines, eliminating interference and noise, and suppose irrationally that there will always be some kind of interference when it's convenient for their argument for there to be so, despite the fact that there is often a very trivial way to show that, yes, look, we have our baseline, and with Cavendish, the baseline is absolutely no movement when the larger test masses are absent from the apparatus. Now, Geo, go on. Come on, VC now, and tell me that in those circumstances, you still think that there can be other effects making that apparatus, the Cavendish, move after what I've just said.
Yeah, I would say absolutely. When you have something, it's the same with the Foucault's pendulum. When you have something that is existing within a medium, it would be impossible to separate the effect of the medium from the effect that you're getting from that. So
yeah, he did it. He went there.
Impossible to do.
You complete mong. You just, ignorance is just your superpower.
And what if I give you scientific paper showing an experiment of Cavendish within a vacuum and producing the same result or close enough where it's just magnitudes closer within a vacuum compared to atmospheric pressure? What if that variable is controlled?
I think you can do whatever you want. If it's something that excites you, I would say go for it, check it out.
Right, but what I'm saying is the implication. So we perform a Cavendish within the atmosphere, and it produces a particular result using a particular sized mass. And then it's brought to a vacuum, and you introduce that same amount of mass, and then the result is the same. Would you then continue with the medium that it's in?
You're changing the medium.
Right, but the result is the same.
That's what I'm saying with Cavendish. There isn't just one exact result. When people actually do the experiment, depending on like the quality of how they set it up and so on, they get a range of readings. So it's not just like one set thing, like, oh, this is it. It's not like water boiling. It's pretty darn consistent. We can all get water boiling at different altitudes down to a T of accuracy, and there's a bunch of different ways to measure the temperature. With Cavendish, it's not that clear cut. And even the mainstream model has sort of abandoned Cavendish and replaced it with, the Einsteinian models. It's not really their main go-to, but it's still part of the history of the.
It's just utter nonsense what you're saying now.
The globe Earth.
Nonsense. It has not been abandoned. It is still the way to determine the G constant.
Right, they still perform the Cavendish today in high school and in colleges. So not sure what you mean by abandoning it.
You are mistakenly thinking again that the Cavendish is a proof of gravity experiment. It's not. It's to measure a constant of the property of gravity.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that. And then they try to use that.
Well, then why do you keep saying erroneous statements about that fact?
It's a trap.
But yeah, like I said, if you guys like it, that's awesome. Whatever works for you. I have little interest in it, but I do understand it. I don't look to that as proof of anything. So, but it is curious. But in terms of what I know the Earth to be, it doesn't have anything to do with the torsion rods and balls hanging from a lead, hanging from a shed ceiling.
Right. That's why I told you earlier I don't respect your opinion, because you take this tangent of this goes against my worldview, therefore it's false. But you haven't articulated any good reason to think that it's false.
Well,
but I understand your position.
It goes against my worldview whatsoever. In fact, I stated earlier, what I was saying is that even if mass attracts mass and it proves what you're claiming it proves, I was asking you earlier, why does that not mean that things are being pulled down to the flat Earth?
And what was my response? What was my response?
Never really answered that other than saying, "Oh, like spheres are really cool and everything's spheres," but that still doesn't get to the root of it. Just because
what was my answer, Gio? Because that wasn't my answer to your question.
Because you like spheres and water droplets come together in spheres does not mean that just because two balls are bumping against each other that all of a sudden that makes anything spherical.
Here, Gio, I'm going to let you know what my answer was, and you can check it just to make sure. What I said is, if we lost all knowledge that we have today and we only had the Cavendish, we would confirm that mass attracts mass, but that would do nothing for the shape of the Earth by itself. Do you remember when I said that?
Yeah, you did say that actually, but then why are you then using it to prove the shape of the Earth?
When have I said that?
We have. We've never said that. Now you're just resorting to the lowest form, the simplest form of just lying.
Well, you just claimed that it falsifies a flat Earth model, and it doesn't.
No, we didn't.
With the information of the Cavendish alone, no, it doesn't. What it does do is add evidence towards a sphere, but it doesn't add evidence towards a flat Earth. It can occur and it can exist. It can exist on a flat Earth because a flat Earth contains mass. And then when you're on that flat Earth, you contain mass. You will attract each other. That's fine. But it's evidence towards a sphere Earth because of other information that we know. This alone does jack shit for the shape.
Well, that's not evidence. To have something and say this thing just gives evidence towards a bunch of other things, that's not evidence for that thing. So what I'm saying, like let's just say you and I are standing in a room and we have a Cavendish and we're both right there and we're measuring, oh my God, there's this attraction. Oh my God. To me, if we're both just honest, just looking at these balls and the torsion rods and whatever, in my opinion, you can certainly have yours and I respect what you're saying. There's absolutely nothing about that denotes the shape of the Earth whatsoever. Even if mass is attracting mass, it could be interesting, like, oh, it's interesting that that's happening. They're wiggling like that. But it doesn't even lend towards any pathway towards the Earth being a sphere in my mind at all, even if that's 100% measured to be the case.
Information alone, I would agree with you. But it's unfortunate that we have other information and other evidences that we can combine this with, and it all fits perfectly.
Well, what they did is they took the mass attracting mass and then just extrapolated that with a sphere. It's just an assumption. It's just a leap of logic.
And too bad that other information comports with it and it flows well with it, and they're used together without error. It's unfortunate for you. I know.
But I could do that as well. I could say, look, this mass attracting mass. Therefore, all these little things that I drop are attracting down to the massive flat Earth. But I wouldn't do that because that's not proof of either. But I could do that, and I could say, oh, but there's all this other evidence, like the fact that we can see so far. There's no measurable curvature. There's no detection of motion whatsoever. I know we could go into all those topics if we want to, but in my viewpoint, there's absolutely no question that those are all the case. So I could take a bunch of those things and squeeze it together with these balls attracting and make up some theory. But I wouldn't do that because it's an invalid leap of logic. And I'm not criticizing or saying that you're doing it wrong or whatever your worldview is cool, and that whatever it is. I'm just saying, for me, that doesn't pass the sort of sniff test of truth for me whatsoever.
Perfect. Because reality is not based on your opinion.
You demonstrated this morning that you cannot follow a logical thought of evidence or rationality at all.
Cool. Well, it's good to be hanging out with you guys. I guess you like hanging out with people that you have that opinion about because we're hanging out. But I like hanging out with you guys, so it's fun. I haven't been on the server in a while, but yeah, if that's who you like to spend time with, if that's your viewpoint on it, fair enough. But I'm having fun talking, and it's been fun chatting. So. I think it's cool to observe things. I think any type of device is cool to set up and observe how it works. But when it comes to cosmology, I don't think little devices are very effective at actually getting to the root of what the universe is, essentially, and who we are and all of that. Not through a little device, but devices can be cool. They can help out with things.
But how have you established that there is no curve? Because I still don't understand that. You just make the claim that it's never been measured, even though we've got lots of data showing that it is. Have you tested your hypothesis?
And what bearing does the size of a device have on anything?
The motion in the ocean, mate.
What was the? There were two things that were brought up there.
So what have you done to confirm, not just deny that we have measured this curvature, because I think there's lots of evidence that we have. What have you done to confirm that it's flat? So put the evidence shoe on the put the evidence shoe on the other foot. So, you've railed against, the Earth being a globe. So what I want to do is now establish how you've affirmed that we exist on a flat plane. What measurements, what tests have you done that are repeatable?
Well, I'll refute the first part. I have not rallied against anyone believing the Earth is a globe. I haven't done that once.
Well, that was hyperbole.
It isn't my cosmology, but I don't desire to change anyone else's mind. I don't desire to push anyone.
Not the point I was trying to get to. I'm much more interested in what you have done that can be repeated by other people to affirm the flatness of the Earth.
Well, I've done long distance observations. I've done laser tests. I've done mirror reflections over long distances. Done observations with devices like telescopes, binoculars over long distances. I've observed the natural function of water.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen way further than should be able to be seen, but those are not the only things that make up the tenets of my understanding of cosmology. It's not limited to those.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying something that's testable, repeatable, that can be done by other people. That's why
I've done what I can, what I have access to, and so on.
So you agree that optical instruments are a good way of observing our reality, then?
I think they can be, yeah. Not always, but yeah, they can be. It depends on what's being used, but yeah. I mean, for me, my own personal observation, if I'm looking at something with my naked eye, a long distance object and so on, that's a direct lived experience of what I'm looking at.
Yeah, but it's not a measurement, though, is it?
I would say it's a type of measurement. Yeah, it's a measurement it's a visual measurement with my body and my eyeballs across the Earth that I live on. Yeah,
I'd just say it's an observation. I mean, I could say it's a car. I probably couldn't say it's a car that's 11 feet 4 inches long or something.
So your eyeballs calibrated in millimeters.
I'm going to finish this off very, very quickly, Kirst. So the problem I've got is great. So we can use optical instruments, we can use our eyes, and when we do that and we use optical instruments, what we notice is the Earth is not flat. Plumb lines are not parallel to each other. That's a really simplistic observation made by surveyors on a daily basis.
Well, I assume you've been in the flat Earth community for long enough to have come across the amount of information that you needed to come to the conclusions you're coming to. But I mean, you're here in the flat Earth community, so I assume there's some reason you're still involving in the conversation of it, right?
Yeah, I'd like understanding more about sciences that I don't understand a lot about, and this is a good way of doing it.
Earthers help you learn science?
Yeah, well, I mean, because we get questions that are challenging. I think, how does that work? And then I can go and look at that. Then I can go and look at, do I have the foundations to understand that? Which is why I don't get into things like general relativity. Yeah, kind of ad hoc describe it, but I don't understand the maths behind it. I don't understand, a lot of the foundations that it comes from. Anecdotally, I can say, yeah, from a historical perspective, but not from a pragmatic perspective.
Yeah.
So when I look at things like the geological surveys that were done in from the 18th century onwards, that's come back with very consistent, very rational, well tested information that we base our maps on. And those maps involve curvature of the Earth. That's why lines of longitude get closer together towards the poles. So the fact you said there was no, it hasn't been measured, I think is not fair.
Well, I guess like I've said before, like I guess in this server there's often a lot of the debates and back and forth and someone trying to convince someone else or whatever, but I'm not on the fence about this. So
But to say that there are no measurements is
like the kind of energy of interrogation. Like I'm free. I'm happy to share my viewpoint on things, but I'm sure you've heard a lot of. I mean, to me, it's just very, very simple. Like even on a direct observational level, water lies flat and level. The Earth is observed to be level as far as I've ever been able to observe in any way, shape, or form. That's not the only reason that I think the Earth is a level plane. But
I've never seen water flat in an uncontrolled environment. I've never seen water flat in the wild. So again, and the fact that we have tidal variations at various points and the tides don't happen at the same time tells me the sea is not flat, it's undulating.
Oh, it's definitely undulating with tides, yeah. But if you have like a lake or a pool, something where you have, but yeah, no, you've heard it all before. I mean, yeah.
But the point I was trying to get back to, Gio, which is I don't think it's fair for you to say that there are no measurements of Earth's curvature. There might be measurements that you disagree with for certain reasons, but to say that they aren't there is not fair. That's the only point.
I think there's things that claim to be measurements of Earth curvature, but and yeah, we could look at those one at a time if you really desire to do so. But I mean, it sounds like you're very solid in your conclusion. I'm very solid in my awareness of things. So I don't really think there's anywhere to go unless there's some way that, I mean, if you're seeking information, I would say just keep seeking it, and you'll find.
Yeah, I'm trying to understand your rationale behind your thought, if that's a fair position to take.
Yeah, if you want to.
So that's what I'm trying to get to is the why. And from a spiritual aspect, totally don't have a problem with your thoughts and views. I'm a tree hugging hippie pagan myself. So, a lot of that stuff I can empathize with. We all have different views on that particular aspect of life. But the when it comes down to, as I say, I always make a difference between the material and the spiritual. The material I can sort of taste, touch, measure kind of stuff, and the spiritual, it's a bit more esoteric.
People have different viewpoints of how important like lived experience is. For me, my lived experience is of a stationary planar Earth and of no movement other than the stars and the heavens moving, and being able to see incredibly long distances across a level surface. So my lived experience of the Earth has never indicated anything of a globular nature. Now I've been told things, shown pictures that claim to be pictures. There's all of the components of what are claimed about the globe Earth, but in my lived experience, there's not one thing. And actually, when I was a child, in elementary school, even when I was first told the Earth was a globe, it never resonated with me. It never seemed to be true, just on a gut level. The idea that I'm spinning and whirling and gravity's keeping everything perfectly in sync with this spinning never resonated in any way, shape, or form. And so there's nothing that I can directly observe or measure or experience as the Earth being that. And the concept that there's this force that's doing that just does not resonate in any way, shape, or form. And I don't see any scientific proof for it either. So to me, it's a model. I think it's interesting. I certainly respect people that have it. If somebody feels like they need to push it on others, I guess that's their life. That's what they want to do or whatever. But I'm more of a live and let live person. So if I like the taste of apples and you like the taste of oranges, so be it. You can have your cosmology, I have mine, and I'm more interested in exploring.
I'm glad you didn't go down the Spartacus. Some people like oysters and some people like whelks and some people like both. That would have been more disturbing. But yeah, very, very simple question. So Antarctica, do you think that's a continent?
No.
So if you got in a boat and you sailed around the continent of Antarctica, would that cause your view a problem?
Well, are you talking about if you went to Antarctica and went to a shoreline and then traveled around that shoreline?
Yeah, basically did that, used a use the compass, use GPS, use whatever thing else you want to do. Would that, if you did that and you got that data and it says, gosh, I went round in a circle, and I was always next to that shoreline and it was always on my right hand side, wouldn't that be, just from a naturally intuitive point of view, a bit problematic?
Well, if it's a ring around a flat Earth, then that's exactly what it would be.
Well, no, because it wouldn't be. I wouldn't be continually turning to my right as I go around it, would I?
You're going around the rim of a big pond.
Mm-hmm. But if I start back in the same place, it's got to be on the inside of me.
Yeah, I mean, it's just inverted either way. Yeah, I mean, on a globe model or on an AE flat Earth model, both models would have. If you go south, you're going to hit. Let's just say I don't even think it is a rim all the way around the flat Earth. I'm not claiming that there's an ice shore. I haven't been there. I do think there's openings in the ice. I think there's more like chunks, like regions of it. It seems like a lot of the ancient maps show 2 Antarctic continents or regions of some sort.
Which one? Are you talking about the Peri Reis?
Well, I mean, a lot of the ancient maps show one that's like south of, Australia. New Zealand.
There's about 2 that show any parts of Antarctica. One is the Peri Reis, and the other one is the guy that begins with M, whose name is escaping me. Those are the 2 I know of. Peri Reis obviously made the claim he drew it from lots of other different maps, source maps that he had, and that's where you kind of get the ancient sort of map guild view from. But we don't have lots of maps showing Antarctica. Sorry.
Why do you guys always appeal to ancient maps? I mean, like, surely a modern map would be more accurate than an ancient map.
Maybe so, maybe not. Depends on what maps we're talking about. But I think they're all interesting to consider.
But I would definitely say that modern maps are way more accurate, way more detailed, and have way more utility than ancient maps. I mean, the Peri Reis I find fascinating because it does have, almost like a coordinate kind of system on it, which was very weird for the the mid-16th century.
Modern maps are more accurate simply for the reason that they have more information available to make them.
Yep, that's why we don't tend to crash into things like barrier reefs, and we just have to cope for the changing estuary channels that we keep digged in. But again, those are mapped, those are warned. We even put local information points out, so update it where we haven't updated the map.
And I guess we got that information by making accurate measurements of things, right?
Yep. Bit of rope and a weight in the old days, bit more modern now. I'm a bit fascinated in ancient cartography, Geo. That's why I kind of knew that.
Yeah, well, it's cool that you guys are in the community and interested in this topic. Not everyone is, in the world. So I think it's cool. You guys are definitely way more into it than like my older brother, for example. I mean, he definitely thinks the Earth is a globe, and he actually probably could debate it quite well. He's pretty knowledgeable just because he's just absorbed everything he was taught in schools very well. So he's very familiar with a lot of, the heliocentric model. But he doesn't find that he needs to go on the internet and talk to flat earthers. In fact, he probably would avoid that because he doesn't find any value in. Like he thinks flat Earth is false, so why would he go talk to them? So he just would never talk to flat earthers on the internet. But he knows that he's on the Glober side. But yeah, it's interesting. The guys that are in the flat Earth community discussing it who think the Earth is a globe, but are also really attracted to it. I always find kind of an interesting psychology.
Well, what fascinates me is, I like logic, I like philosophy, I like history. And I find it fascinating why people will adopt a position when there is so much evidence saying it's wrong. It just seems irrational to me, and I want to try and understand what's the cause of that irrationality. That's what fascinates me. It's why people think the way they do, why they do what the things they do. It's why I like history. It's why I like archaeology.
Yeah, well, I certainly can't speak for everybody who. I mean, I actually don't even really refer to myself as a flat earther. I mean, I think the Earth is a level, stationary plane and so on, topographical plane, and I think it's surrounded by a toroidal sphere, spherical toroidal field, and so on. But without going into all that, I'm just saying that I don't really call myself a flat earther per se, even though. But even with that being said, I mean, if I were just to make a generalization, I think that a lot of people who maybe would self-proclaim themselves as a flat earther, their observations, like, it makes a lot of sense to me why someone would think it. We could get into all day of whether what's true and what's not, different claims from NASA and different things, but at the end of the day, just being a human, the lived experience, when you can see lighthouses and land masses, you can see Kauai from Oahu at 90 miles away with the naked eye, and so on and so forth. Just observing the Earth directly, and that factor, looking at how water functions, and also just the lived experience. Like, to me, the Earth, without any question, it's a stationary thing. I mean, there's just no question. It's sort of like if I was on a boat, I would know I'm moving. If I'm on the ground, I would know I'm stationary. To me, it's not something I'm trying to convince someone else to think that way. I'm just saying that it's a direct lived experience. It's sort of like saying, if I'm in a dark room, someone says, "Is it dark?" I says, "Yes, it's dark." And they turn a light on. Is it light? Yes, I see light. It's that direct.
But I also know that there are things that my senses are not fine-tuned enough to be able to detect, whether that's a very small object, whether that's a very small movement, whether that's a very subtle smell, when that's a very high-pitched or low-pitched noise. All of those things, they're happening, but they're beyond my ability with my raw senses to detect.
There are also practical devices in use every day that depend on the rotation of the Earth for their functionality. Go figure. How do you explain those things?
What are you referring to in particular?
Well, for instance, a gyro compass on a ship. It depends on the rotation of the Earth.
Why?
Because that's the mechanism, the physics behind it is the rotation of the Earth makes it precess towards the north.
That's an assumption as to why it's precessing, though.
No, it's not an assumption at all. It's calculable, it's measurable, it's predictable.
And it's congruent. It's in line with lots of other observations that we have. So can you say it's purely a deductive argument? From a philosophical standpoint, probably not. Is it an inference? Yes, it is. But when you've got 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 15, 20 different things all pointing in the same direction, you can have strong faith in that inference, or strong belief in, or strong confidence in that inference.
Well, I guess, but if you're on the quest for truth, I guess you would have to hope that the belief and faith is not coming from a deceptive source. And if it is, then the whole thing crumbles.
Which is why, I don't have a problem when you say you should do things yourself. I mean, I've made a couple of observations. One of them is the angle of observation to Polaris, using a sextant while I was traveling north. And that was absolutely spot on what I told it should be, which was really cool. And I know that regular pattern of sort of 69, 70 miles per degree of elevation doesn't work on a flat plane. It requires a curved surface to map to the Earth to give us those observations. So whether the Earth is stationary or not, or the sky is moving, okay, we can argue that point. But from the point of the shape, I think that the observation of Polaris demonstrates it's not flat. It's a falsification, which we can have good confidence in.
Yeah. Well, I mean, overall, I think cosmology, to me, it's not something that needs to be pushed onto other people. You know what I mean? Like, to me, flat earthers can be flat earthers, globe earthers can be globe earthers. Anyone can be anything they want. And is there universal truth? I do think there is. Like, there is a physical world that we live in that is something, but whether we all agree on it or whether someone has to push it or convince someone else just isn't relevant. Relevant.
No, I'm just giving you my justification of why I hold to my point. You know, I'm being rational. I'm giving the justification of why I've concluded certain facts about the Earth. So it's not that I'm trying to push this on you. I'm merely giving my rationalization of why I hold to this position.
Yeah, that's okay, Gio. You're allowed to be completely wrong. Doesn't matter.
Well, that's harsh. I think he's been pretty respectful.
Well, it's realistic.
He's addressed questions, which is more than a lot of people come in here do. I mean, the only other thing I want to say, I think one of the reasons that people run away from the label of flat earther to globe skeptic, it's not so much that, you know, they you know, are not certain about their view, is they don't want to have the burden of proof, which means they can just try and deconstruct a globe without actually having to put forward, you know, their worldview and their cosmology, if you want to put it that way, which is why I appreciate what you're doing. You're not running from it, and that's good.
Well, I mean, certainly the globe Earth cosmology has been pushed, in my opinion, by schooling systems and so on, in a way that built up like almost this team mentality, you know, like the football team and everyone's wearing the NASA shirts and the globe Earths. And I mean, I grew up, you know, I mean, just being involved in a lot of communities involved in, you know, yoga and astrology and psychedelics and all this. And, you know, they're all putting the globe Earth on their business cards and on their websites. I actually I made one of the first websites I made for myself doing astrology work was, it did have, I don't think it had the Earth on it, but I did have like some kind of a space background. But yeah, so it's interesting to me how many people identify with that as, you know, a part of their sort of, yeah, it's like a football team sort of. It's like Copernicus discovered this and we're the globe earthers, and, you know, putting it in their logos and all that. But yeah,
I just think for people that are proponents of the flat Earth, it's a way of avoiding any justification or burden of proof to rationalize their position. You know, which is why it kind of irks me a little bit. Well, it looks flat, it looks stationary, it looks like the sky is moving above us. Cool, but that's just it looks like. It's not actually anything that we can take with any sort of empiricism.
it's fair that people come to whatever they want to come to. If somebody wants to feel like my lived experience is a stationary Earth, I see no reason to batter them or criticize them. If somebody else feels as though their lived experience is on Earth,
not trying to batter anybody, not trying to, you know, say you have to think the way I do. And again, just giving the rationalization for the position I'm holding for that point of view. So that's all I do. You know, I'm not trying to change your mind. And I think you're wrong. That's my opinion, and I think I can justify and substantiate that opinion. But you know you're right. Everyone has entitlement to their own view.
Yeah, like I said, he's allowed to be wrong.
Yeah. I think there's stronger justification for, you know, the position that we hold for the way our solar system works than from the total level of inconsistency and conflict that comes anytime any flat earther I've ever heard is trying to explain their model. There's no coherency to it. There's no congruency to it.
Gio, you're quite happy to live in your world of willful ignorance as long as you own the fact that you are living willfully ignorant.
I don't identify or validate any of what you just claimed as in any way that it relates to me, but I hear you said those words in that category, in that organization, but that has no resonance for me at all. But thank you for sharing it.
But by the way, careful saying the word yoga when lemon bird's around, because evidently that's a demonic practice that allows you to form your body into shapes which then become an aerial for demonic possession. Just
Lemon said that?
Lemon said that.
I thought Lemon was. I know he's not super into yoga and stuff, but I'm pretty sure he pretty open-minded about it. I thought, but I don't know. Maybe not.
With Lemon, the road is narrow and not well read. He's pretty good on philosophy, actually. I'll give Lemon that. You know, he certainly understands what he's doing.
I guess. I mean, I just don't get like the attitude sometimes in the server where it's like you guys. The server's called Flat Earth. You want to talk to Flat Earthers. You find it all very curious and interesting, but then there's a lot of just, in general, just this battering, and you guys are morons and idiots. Like, why would you want to hang out with people that you think are those things? That's what doesn't make sense to me. Like, if there was a Discord server called Water Boils at 189 degrees, not 212 degrees, I would be like, probably not that interested. Like, I wouldn't go in there and call them morons and idiots. Like, if I think they're wrong, they might be wrong. If I wanted to learn from them or hang out with them, I might do that. But I don't see the benefit of.
I'll give you the answer to that. I hold myself accountable for my actions and my inactions and what counts as my intent, which is why I haven't called you an idiot. You know, I've told you where I disagree with you, and I haven't barracked you on any point. So I can't be responsible for the conduct of others.
Pat yourself on the back a bit more.
That's their own morality. I stick to mine.
Yeah, and I was only making a generalization. I mean, I was looking. I haven't really been reading the chat, but there were people just all these guys are more like. Why would you? It's interesting to me, I guess. I mean, it's not really because I haven't really been on the server. I usually come on and then I leave for months because I just find it uninteresting. Like all the insults. It's just very. I don't know. We were talking about this earlier. It's just. It's very remedial and just uninteresting, I guess, to just call people names in circles. But, anyways, but yeah, it's just no. You've been very civil, and I've enjoyed chatting with you. But I mean, and this time on this server here has been more chill than others. But to be a grown adult and to go onto a server of people you think are wrong and then just to batter and beat them is really. It almost wants to bring tears to my eyes. Like, not because I'm hurt by it. I'm not hurt by it at all. It's just sad to me that humans would want to treat others like that.
Yeah, and on that we are in agreement. You know, I'm not saying I'm nice to everybody all the time because I'm fucking not. But, you know, I tend to treat people as they treat me.
On a very, very quick point, you can boil water at 189 degrees. Just changes the pressure.
Pick that randomly. I'm just saying, make it much less, like 72 degrees. You know, you're not going to get water boiled 72. I'm just saying, if there was something, if there was something that, use whatever example you want. If there was something that I thought was patently untrue, my interest in being part of a server called that thing would be zero.
Yeah,
not because
I'm Greyhound.
I'm just saying that's me. Like, I wouldn't hang out with. I mean, yeah, I just wouldn't do that. If somebody had a website called the Purple Elephant God or something, and they thought God was a purple elephant, all that stuff, I just wouldn't spend time there.
Yeah, but it's lucky that we're all individuals then, isn't it? And we don't do what other people expect us to be like, right?
I agree.
But Gio, if you thought that there were a group of people out there that were spreading a lie, and you were like joined up with other people that were basically interested in, you know, defending the truth, as you saw it, so to speak, you think that would be weird that you would kind of hang out with them to defend the truth against the people you say are lying? You find that odd?
I mean, I don't find it odd that humans do that.
Okay, well, that's the charge that you've leveled against us. And one quick thing on the insults. People are not telling you that you're ugly, you smell funny, your mother dresses you funny. Okay, what the insults that you get, I'm not defending insults per se, but they are targeted at, just for lack of a better way of expressing it, the crazy shit you say, Gio. You got to realize that and realize the difference.
I hear you, but I guess to that, I'd rather hang out with people that don't insult, which is why I usually just leave the server. And I'm not criticizing anyone for doing that. I'm just saying
That's your choice. I'm
I
not saying anything about that.
If I had to choose in my day whether I'm going to hang out with people that are like loving and interesting to talk to and who respect me and I respect them versus people that would just say, you're a moron, you're a fucktard, you're this and that.
We do more than that, though.
That's true. I know. And I'm not saying that's for everyone.
We tell you why you're a moron. You get my drift? We do have explanations. We have reasons for these things.
I'm the same way even on there's flat earthers that do that all day that I also am not interested in. There's some which I won't name right now, but there's some that's all they do. It's even some of the big YouTube channels. And I find it as uninteresting, even if they're doing it, even if I think the earth is flat and they're doing it to globe earthers, I find that as uninteresting, at least for myself. And I don't listen to their channels, you know.
Okay, I can't help you with that, and I can't make everybody behave the way that you think everybody should behave. I'm interested in the truth of the matter, and that's the bottom line. All this other nonsense, it's not that big of a deal. But I mean, we have very good reason to know what we know and believe it's true. That there's no problem with that.
We're here to test the belief of flat Earth, and it has never withstood any kind of testing that we do.
Hey, what's up, Chemo? I was for several years on the first version and the second one, yeah, but I'm not on the server now. Long story or short story? There's always a history. Yeah, I don't know how much detail to go into, but yeah, I'm not on the server any longer and don't have interest in being a part of that. I mean, I love a lot of the people there, friends, community, absolutely, but the way that that's run and what's behind that, I'm not interested in being a part of it.
Don't tell me narcissistic egos ended up in conflict.
No, I don't know if on the air here it's worth getting all into, but when the coming? Ballers, okay. Yeah. So okay. So yeah, yes, that can happen. Yeah, I mean, I think it's different now than it was back in the day. Back in the day, it was more like, especially the first version, the 1.0, it was much more lively and people were allowed to share their thoughts. Whereas now it seems very controlled and limited, and it's different now. But yeah, back in the day, it was wild. Yeah, all kinds. Well, I don't really listen to their live stream much anymore. I tuned in on just rare occasions to listen to a couple minutes, but it's different. It seems like new people don't seem as freely coming in there and asking questions. It's much more controlled in terms of kind of what people are allowed to propose, I guess, and how quickly they get shut down with the kind of cult energy of the whatever they're pushing, the way they push it all. I mean, it seems to me, I don't listen to it all the time anymore, so I guess it's not like I can give an exact, but
So there you go, Chemo. Flat Earth is failing because it's a cult.
Well, that server, as we all know, has had a severe banning thing going on, meaning banning new people. I mean, even when I was a mod on there for as long as I was, I mean, I was always the voice that was trying to give Globe Earthers respect and give them a voice to speak, and especially new people. Like, you guys are pretty advanced on the topic, so you're pretty aware of a lot of these things. But, new people come in, some 22-year-old guy, and, he's saying what he thinks. And it's just the amount that the moderators and the other people would just pounce on that person, shred them, the whole deal, ban them, all of that process. And some ways in a very abusive way, where, you better give me this answer in 5 seconds or I'm banning you. It was very, very chaotic. So I was always the one that was kind of speaking up for not only Globe Earthers, but just new people that were coming in. And then all the other mods would usually attack me, saying that I was allowing the trolls to troll, which I don't feel like I did. I mean, but I was just allowing people. Well, sometimes someone does need to troll a little bit. Like, they're new to the topic, they're kind of giggling and talking, and what I would do is just answer their question directly, whereas a lot of the rest of them would just get attacking them. And
anyway, a lot of them are nervous when they join for the first time, so I get that.
It's an awful experience. And all the people I've seen come in there, it's awful. For someone new who's like 15, 25, 35, whatever age, the amount, I mean, I don't know exactly what it's like today, like I said, because I'm not a part of it, but the amount of attack, abuse, banning, it's really sad that someone can't come in there and explore the idea without being treated that way. It's just, I don't know what their goal is. Is their goal to kind of introduce people to the idea of the Earth being flat, or is their goal just to berate and beat the shit out of people that don't think it's flat, or is their goal just to push the flat Earth and get people to just concede right on the spot?
I think
a mixture.
I think it's coming off the back of QE and Nathan, where things are very strict, very tight, and I think they kind of modeled it off that slightly, and you've said.
Why are they so strict and tight, Kimo?
I don't know.
Well, I think it's changed over the years.
I mean, very freedom of speech. So like Joe's saying, even if they seem to be trolling, not all, it's just like their way of entering, and obviously if this continues like a PMARS, then it's clear he's not for the discussion. But I've seen, like, Globus, for example, he was a trolling the flat Earth, and now he's a flat earther.
You think P Mars is a flat earther, or what is he?
He's just troll out and out.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
I like P Mars. I've had a lot of in-depth conversations with P Mars. I mean, he admits to trolling. Like, I mean, he's done some wild trolling, but he the last time I heard him, he said he was embarrassed about his globe belief, but he's actually a pretty deep guy. Like, you can actually get into some deep conversations with him about various topics.
Yeah, about Agenda 33 or whatever it was. Yeah.
He's one of those guys that's like kind of a flat earther, almost like Tim Osmond. Like, I don't know, he pretty much kind of there with it, but he's just sort of done the globe Earth.
Another reason why flat earthers are so strict is because of the initial abuse that we had and still get.
Yeah, that's fair.
So I don't think, most flat earthers want to give all Earth the chance.
Well, yeah, and people
true.
People then flip that around on people that have no expectation and just come in and are like, hey, what is this? Here's a meme. And then they get banned. They're like, what? I don't understand.
Right. Like, what I've always felt on that server, I mean, it's challenging when you have a whole group like that. But I think Chemo's right. Like, the amount of attacks that flat earthers feel like they get, all of the you guys are morons, retards, whatever. So when somebody comes in new, even though they might not be some super advanced troll that's like got all these things ready to go, they might just be coming in, giggling a little bit. And actually, a lot of flat earthers say that when they first heard about flat Earth, they thought it was stupid. I didn't think it was at all, but some flat earthers came to it that way. So there might be someone who thinks that when they first come, but it doesn't mean that they're actually doing some hardcore
I thought it
troll.
was insane. I thought, what are you talking about? The person that told me, I said to him, the sun is round, the moon is round, the planets are round, of course Earth is round. So I thought it was insane. but he asked me to prove there are real pictures, and I've not been able to do 7 years.
But that to me is very much like the, I never wanted to find God, but you go looking for shit and you find it.
I think that's one of the reasons why the flat earthers are so strict, and I've always seen it as trauma, not to attack the ballers in that way. So I
agree.
Yeah.
No, I agree, and I have compassion for that. And when I was on that server, I felt that and understood that on both sides, that can be the case. But there can be. I mean, it's tough, I guess. I mean, unless the server is run, it just depends on how it's run, I guess, how you do it. But I guess what I would say is that I don't feel like it was very, as an overall thing. I think it fluctuated throughout time. The 2.0 one is different than the 1.0 and the people running it and that some of the dynamics of that. And then QE was not really a part of it for most of the time until more recently. He wasn't even really on the server. And then at one point he became more active and so on. So and maybe the Nathan Oakland QE way of kind of roasting people and shredding them kind of thing.
Right.
Is a little bit different now, but even some of that still happened in the past as well. I guess all I'm saying is that I feel like that server is like a graveyard of banned people who probably were interested in flat Earth and got wrongly banned and didn't feel like they were treated in a way where they could figure this out for themselves. So the only people that stay in there are the ones that either became a flat earther or the globe earther ones that are just really in the background, and even those still get messed with. So I don't know what it's like today, but yeah, it's a mixture of energies for sure. It doesn't have a lot of like cohesion and organization. It's just sort of like, it's a little bit of, I used to jokingly say it's a little bit like a elementary school classroom where the teacher left the room, for 20 minutes and the kids are all just throwing spitballs and just going crazy.
So Gio, do you feel like you should be ops here or what?
What?
You feel like you should be ops, like mods here, or no?
I want to be a mod on this server?
Yeah.
No, I don't have any interest. I haven't even been on this server in months. I've joined and left this server like 3 times over the years, but no, I don't have any interest in that.
I was only asking that so I could ask something because Queen said that we're the same people, but yeah.
No, I mean, do you guys have any mods that aren't globe earthers, or I think everyone's a globe earther?
I think that's probably
Becky, Debbie.
Debbie. I mean, yeah, I was gonna say I think that's probably true, but it's not actually. There's a bunch of counterexamples. There's like 6. Yeah.
Me and Becky are
chemo. Yeah, that's cool.
Wait, are you and Becky the only flat Earth mods? Yeah, I guess. Is that true? Who else? All right, I guess that's it.
Another thing I was going to say about like some of the stuff that happened on 24/7 chemo, and it kind of goes into what you were saying before. I think the other thing is that a lot of flat earthers are frustrated that they were lied to, like when they come to the conclusion that we were lied to. And so when people come in, like let's say some 20-year-old kid comes in and he's saying why he thinks the Earth is a globe, Cavendish and those kinds of things. Some of the flat earther, the moderators and so on, they get this sort of gang mentality where it's sort of like they somehow project that 20-year-old kid is the fucking liar. He's the one guy that, you know what I mean? So it's like they're battering him down as if he's the one pushing Cavendish. Whereas in reality, yeah, he might be kind of saying that that's his argument or whatever, but he's not the one lying. You know what I mean? He's not the one behind it. I feel like that happens a lot where it's like they're angry that they were lied to. And so they're almost taking it out on these, which is a normal human thing to do. It's difficult to not do that, but.
I mean, I don't think this debating is for everyone. I don't think all the flat earthers are cut out for it because you have to wade through a lot of the opposition's nonsense. So no one's prepared to speak to someone who's going to directly lie to you. Usually you have a conversation and it just goes normally. in a normal way. You know, like I know I can't not try and make up a story in front of your face. Most people are not prepared for that. You know, like flat earthers. That's another reason why they freak out, because it's like, well, why are you lying? Why are you lying? Just either do it or don't do it. You know?
Who would determine if they were lied to or not? Could you prove that? I think you could.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing that happens in that, at least back in the day, you know, the 2.0 at the beginning of it and so on, is just like these couple ideas that just get pushed repetitively, you know, the gas pressure container, some of these things that are, and sometimes like someone will be new coming into it, you know, and they're like, oh, why do you guys think the earth is flat? And all of a sudden someone's like, you know, aggressive, jumping on the gas pressure. And it's just the person's like, what? Like, I just want to know why you guys think the earth is flat. What are we? it's
At the same time, on this side of the fence, we feel like we've answered that before. So, you know, it kind of gets hold of either way.
It's because the funniest thing is that the atmosphere's not under gas pressure. That's the funniest bit about it.
I think that's why they get angry. Because again, people give their opinions as fact. And if judges are going to say that so nonchalantly, oh, well, it is because it is, without doing anything more, then I think that's another reason where...
No, my office
don't
is
be
in the gas pressure. My office is in the atmospheric pressure. It's not atmospheric, it's barometric pressure. It's got nothing to do with the second law of thermodynamics. It's the dumbest argument you got.
Well, the other thing about it, just in general, to try to claim that just because you can contain helium or whatever here on Earth, that absolutely means that there's a container around the Earth. Like, it's weird that that's pushed with such vigor, as if it's some dead set proof. Oh, just because you contain helium right here and you can't, whatever, that the Earth has to be a helium container. It's like, why? Like, unless you know what the outer extents are and have measured them, why would you make a claim about it? But they do, and they'll make a claim as if it's some proof of a flat Earth. I just think it's completely faulty logic.
There is a video on YouTube. I'd love to be able to try and find it. I can't remember the name of it to find it, but there is a video of a helium balloon in a vacuum chamber that obviously after all the air is extracted, the helium balloon sinks to the floor.
I mean, how they're going with it, they're trying to make this claim that, oh, the globe Earth doesn't have a container and we have gas pressure, so it has to be a flat contained thing. And yeah, I just like I said, I don't think it's valid.
I think that one's more for space. So that space, I hope,
can't exist without a barrier in between. Yeah, there's that part of it too. Yeah, the barrier.
So we attack,
lack of barrier and the dramatic difference.
Top, middle, and bottom.
Well, no, the actual funny thing is that if we're going to need a container, the flat earthers are kind of right, because a sphere doesn't need a container to hold gas pressure because there's a pressure gradient, whereas flat earth will need a container, but they only need walls. They don't need a dome.
Why couldn't a flat earth also just be layers and layers of lesser pressure going into whatever, another dimension or infinite ether or something?
It could be anything you want. That doesn't make it.
You don't have to have a container. I'm just saying it could just be going into higher and higher levels of
okay.
ether.
All right, that's fair.
That dissipate into at a level that we can't physically survive. You know, beyond that point, it's like there may be a barrier of which humans can survive, but it doesn't mean that there absolutely is a physical type container. It could be non-physical.
All right.
Monkey Sage, are you a flat earther or a globe earther or / sane person?
Oh, I'm a globe earther, like 100%. What the fuck?
Oh no, you just sound similar to someone else.
Okay. I don't know who else it is, but I'm trying to give him the benefit of the doubt, but it's kind of hard.
Oh no, sorry, it wasn't you. Whoever was just talking, I don't think it was
Yeah.
you. That was just.
Yeah, it was Geo that was just talking.
about me.
Oh, that was Geo.
Mm-hmm. He just sounds like Monkey Sage. We actually think they're the same person because they never talk at the same time.
Geo, talk at the same time. God damn it.
I know Monkey Sage. He's a glow earther. I know Monkey.
Oh shit, you son of a bitch.
We're not the same.
I think we should stop saying globe earthers, because we're not actually globe earthers. We're actually normal people.
What, globe tards?
Well, I don't associate with the term flat earther either. I mean, I think the Earth is a level stationary plane surrounded by a toroidal implosion. The Earth, a toroidal implosion with a dielectric inertial static planar Earth with topographical fluctuations within a celestial sphere. But flat Earth is kind of a limited way to describe it.
So we've got a toroidal magnetic field around, the planet, which is cool. And we know, we have good evidence to say that's generated due to the motion of the Earth's core. What's the cause for the toroidal field on flat Earth, or is that just something that we don't know yet?
I could probably cook up a good word salad: fractal, Fibonacci, spiral, infinite, toroidal.
It's a good.
What I don't know is absolutely fine, and I'm not going to try and nail your feet to the floor because you said I don't know something.
Well, at the core level, what I think this universe is it's a realm of consciousness. I think consciousness exists beyond this realm. This is just one of many realms, and it's a physical realm in which souls, human souls, and other souls can exist within. So essentially, it's a spirit world. It's a type of spirit world. It's just one that we describe as physical, and it's one dimension of many. So in terms of what surrounds it, I mean, it's constructed of consciousness, which itself...
You're pretty close to a Gnostic kind of view of the world, then.
Yeah, it's a realm suspended in hyperspace, perhaps.
I don't know what it is, but it's something that you know. Yeah?
Mind space.
Geo, can I run... Obviously, you believe there's a creator. I believe there's a creator of some description. Can I run something by you real quick?
Yeah. I'm always open to hear people's thoughts on the creator.
I am going to say some harsh words. Not too harsh, but please don't be offended. But I've always thought that ever since I heard about the flat Earth, which was April the 15th, 2015, at about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I remember the day perfectly well. I'm a little bit autistic. And I heard it was Eric Dubé's 200 proofs, and I got through all his 200 proofs, and I quickly realized that he didn't actually prove anything and contradicted himself on about 30 proofs that many times, up to 200, whatever that is, fucking 21 times. Anywho, my basic question is, why would the creator of the flat Earth make everything so basic? Like everything's fake to make the flat Earth real. Like when I first heard about the flat Earth, it was, okay, the Earth's flat because it looks flat. Fair enough. That's good. That's what they thought back in the olden days.
Just to keep in mind the goal of the server. It's not to bore people to death and make them leave.
No. I'm explaining. Sorry. You've read the Bible. You've read the Bible, so you can listen to me for 2 minutes. Obviously, they would think that if you were near the ocean, which is where the most populous places of the Earth would have been 2,000 years ago, because that's where the food sources were, fish, that civilization knew about. And then comes along the point where some people go that are inland, and they go, oh fuck, the stars and the sun revolve around us, and none of them really change angular size that much at all. And then you determine that, oh fuck, maybe it's the Earth revolving instead of us. And then you'd go and see your mate Steve that lives 50 miles away down at the beach, because he's been giving you fish, he's been giving you good deals and stuff. And you go, Steve, do you think
monkey?
Do you think the Earth's flat? And he go, well, look out there, it looks fucking flat.
Jazza, there's a fucking reason you place so highly in the most ineffective globe artist bracket. Take a hint, bro. Wrap it up.
That's probably because people keep interrupting.
No, Jazza, that's not why.
To say.
It's because you ramble incessantly about virtually nothing, and by the end of the journey, you've forgotten what point you even thought you were going to try to make.
But carry
on, Jazza, as you were, sir.
I just made the observation why I would think the Earth was spinning and not the sky, because nothing changed angular resolution, not the sun, not the stars, which means that they are, which would tell me that they're fucking far away.
Yeah,
it's not science and rockets.
Is that true?
Yeah, he's right.
No,
it's not science and rockets. It's not science and rockets.
No, that whether it's the Earth turning or the sky on a dome or something around it, that doesn't change the angular resolution of things. It's the distance.
Dude, okay, why would you expect to feel the Earth spin? That is the dumbest question I've heard from a flat earth.
That's not even my argument.
Hang on.
Jazz, I'm just saying your argument is flawed. That's it.
Okay, and this is one of your flawed arguments, that you should expect to feel the Earth spin.
I'm sorry you're being subjected to this globetardery. This is clearly the worst argument we've heard all day, and it came from a glober. I am embarrassed.
Why? Why would you expect to feel the Earth spin? It's been doing it for fucking billions of years. Why would you expect to feel it?
That's a horrible question, Jazza.
It's a horrible question because it's the truth. Why would you expect to feel it? It's been doing it for a fucking long time.
I like Jazza. I remember back in the day, used to come on 24/7 at late, got 5, 6 in the morning. Before you got muted, you would at least get a couple sentences. I always tried to keep you unmuted.
And I appreciate that, Gio, but now I'm banned because people like Jimbo can't handle the truth.
Yeah, I'm working on that, Jazza. Hold on, okay. It just takes some time because people get upset with you, and then especially the new live stream, no drinking in live stream.
Fuck me, Jazza. If it's your fault, Crit's here. You've got some splaining to do, and I don't want to hear it,
dude. Just can I talk for a second?
You just talked for 10 minutes and said nothing.
I talked for about 1 minute and 20 seconds, and you cut me off.
Your time is dilating, Jazza. Slow the fuck down.
Oh, so am I? I'm obviously a fucking nuclear clock on a satellite above the Earth with time dilation.
Well, the one thing I'll respond to what you're saying, Jazza, about I agree with you that when flat earthers say all these things about feeling the Earth spin, I mean, if you were on the outside of a ball without gravity, let's say, and without all of that, then yeah, you would probably feel all kinds of spinning. But the reason that it's not a super valid thing for flat earth to say is only because on the glober side, they claim that the gravity force keeps everything perfectly clung, and the atmosphere in lockstep with the globe. That's the whole model, is that you can't feel it because of the gravitational atmosphere. that's clung to the outside. Now, I'm not saying that that's, in my opinion, proven or that that's happening, but I'm saying in their model, that's the explanation. So to say,
No,
oh,
it's not. That's not why we don't feel it.
It's because gravity is holding everything to it. And
that is not why we don't feel it, Gio. My God, where'd you get that from?
Gravity essentially is tricking you into thinking that the Earth is stationary and flat because you can't feel any movement, but actually you're whirling and spinning. But the magical gravity just tricks you, basically.
No,
first of all, it's acceleration.
Hang on.
Acceleration is the issue, not movement. And there's not enough there to sense.
But you can feel that, like you're not moving on a car that's moving straight. You're rotating.
Gio, tell me why. Tell me why you say that. Back that up. You would feel it. Why?
Because there's multiple motions. Like if you have a drone that's flying in a motorhome and you turn quickly to the right, that drone will fly into the side of the motorhome.
And we're not doing that. Gio, what is the acceleration resulting from these movements? It's acceleration, Gio, not movement. Acceleration is the bottom line. Movement isn't felt. Acceleration is felt.
Right. So it should be, you should be feeling it since the Earth is spherical, or it's supposed to be a paroid. You should feel.
If anybody wants to step in and coddle them,
he said
and think that they can get through to them, that's fine with me. I'll shut up. But Gio, that's wrong.
The elliptical
said paroid though.
Acceleration. The elliptical orbit would give you an acceleration and a deceleration, and the equation of time indicates a change in speed. So you would have a change in acceleration that you should feel.
What's no. He said, my God, what is the acceleration?
Yeah,
there is one.
Curve.
I've got a feeling that somebody's chirping in from the background, very low. Your mic's very low, sir.
Curve, they gave you a shout out last night.
Curve.
Who's talking?
Jeremy.
Jeremy, your mic is a bit low, but I can hear you. But
no, Curve's been playing games with me for days now. All right.
No, you are really low, Jeremy. That wasn't unfair.
Curve, you do realize that acceleration can be in any axis, X, Y, or Z, and the Earth has been doing the same shit Groundhog Day for a fucking long time.
Am I good now? That's better. Curve, they gave you a shout out last night. Also, this guy said equation of time and paroid shaped Earth. That was funny.
I'm not concerned with what you think, Jessa.
Of course you're not, because it's the truth, and you don't understand what I'm saying. So it's
okay.
Normal.
W for Jazza. You have slayed me, sir. Well done.
I'm not saying I said that. I'm not as obnoxious as you flat earthers. So we just had a conversation. That's all.
You were going to say it's as obnoxious as me, right?
No, I wasn't. I would just like I said. I wasn't.
Better been what you were going to say.
I was not going to say that you conceded because I'm not an asshole like some other people.
All right. Well, Jazza, why don't you try to reason in your own personal style with Gio here about the acceleration versus movement?
That's the thing. There is no acceleration because it's been doing the same.
Okay, you're done. You're done.
Yeah, you're completely wrong.
You're wrong.
God.
Boom.
It's been doing the same thing. There's only an acceleration if there's a change in the velocity vector, and it's been doing the same fucking thing for billions of years.
Bring him up to speed, Paul.
Please stand down.
The fact that it goes in a circle, Jazza, means it's changing velocity, dude.
Well,
no. The fact that it's done it constantly for so long means that it doesn't.
The fact that it changes direction is an acceleration.
It's a delta.
Jazza.
It's a delta Z, something like that. There's a change.
Sweet baby Jesus.
Yeah. Sweet baby Jesus.
If there's a constant acceleration in any direction, it's a constant.
In which direction?
It's moving around the fucking sun. It's a constant.
Yeah. So
which direction is the acceleration in that case, Jazza?
Yeah.
I don't give two flying fucks what it is, but it's a constant.
It's towards the center of the motion, Jazza.
It's towards the center of the mass of the sun.
Yeah, that's correct.
No, it's actually towards the barycenter, not the center of the mass of the sun.
Is the barycenter and the center is the same thing? Come on, for our system.
No, it's not.
Oh, I'm wrong. All right.
Holy fuck! Tomatoes, tomatoes. Jesus Christ! It's not science and rockets.
Well, apparently
No
it is
wonder
for you, Jazza, because you don't seem to comprehend what acceleration is.
If you can't tell the difference in the taste between tomatoes and
That's what it
tomatoes,
was.
there's no helping you, Jazza.
Geo got it, and he's a flat earther. I don't know.
Geo got
Geo,
it.
you're the smartest flat earther on the fucking globe. Congratulations.
Hey, explain it to us, Geo.
No, he doesn't have to. It's not science and rockets.
You don't have to. You don't have to. I'm not saying. Look, I didn't mean to say it that way. Explain it to us if you want to, Geo, because you know some shit we don't apparently.
No. What I'm saying is, Geo may be a flat earther, so don't fucking bag him about it. It's not his fault that you just believed what you were taught. You never understood what you were taught.
Do you feel like explaining, Geo?
Well, what's
And
happening?
And Jimbo, I'm not your fucking science teacher.
Jazza, rest.
If you have
Should have fucking learned that 80 years ago.
Let him talk, Jazza.
Well, if you have a rotating Earth, roughly 1,000 miles an hour, which is rotating in an elliptical orbit around the sun, you're going to get a change in velocity and acceleration every day it's rotating, depending on what part of the elliptical orbit it's on. And that's going to change depending on what part of the elliptical orbit. It should change.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, that seems true.
And it does.
Paul, what do you make of this change in acceleration? The verbiage is throwing me off a little bit here.
It's like, have you ever been on like the tilt-a-whirl where you're rotating on a little set of cars, then that whole thing is also rotating. When you get out, like when that thing hits the elliptical, you whip around the outside of it, and then when you're on the inside, it's almost like you're hardly moving at all.
You got a terrible scale problem.
Yeah.
Same concept. I mean, the thing is, the only way the globe Earth can be rationalized, in my opinion, is just to use gravity as this force that keeps it all clung to the ball and makes it seem like the Earth is stationary, not moving, and the force does it. But the idea that that force exists and it's keeping every leaf from every tree and every single thing perfectly still and stationary has never resonated with me, even when I was a child. Never made sense.
Good job.
Geo, have you ever dropped?
Yeah, it's a great straw, man.
It doesn't work like that. It's complete nonsense, Geo, that's what we say is the explanation. So you've been wallowing in ignorance for hours now. You need to give it up, man.
Do you not know why they say we don't? Are you still talking about feeling the acceleration?
Yep.
Geo, trying to impress us with 1,000 miles an hour reasons some kind of palpable acceleration is again nonsense.
Geo,